Where do angels hide when the devil drug named fentanyl is on the loose?
You guys gotta get up, man. Wake up, man.
And if you thought the opioid epidemic was bad, it's worse than you ever imagined. Because of fentanyl, some 50 times stronger than heroin.
You play Russian roulette every time you go buy a bag of heroin.
Street dealers pushing liquid death or selling heroin laced with fentanyl. Just a trace, a touch, a breath of fentanyl can be deadly.
The amount of fentanyl which could kill you is really the size of a couple of snowflakes.
Now, Crime Watch Daily is breaking new information about how illicit fentanyl is smuggled into America.
We've had cases where drugs were secreted in tombstones.
We go undercover with New York City's top narc.
We found 18 kilos. It would kill probably millions.
Take you inside the DEA's top secret drug lab.
That's 2 milligrams.
That's it?
You can barely see it. That's considered a lethal dose.
It looks like a little bit of salt or sugar.
And tell the heartbreaking stories of how this deadly drug worms its way into some of the nation's nicest suburban neighborhoods.
For a moment, I was in complete denial. I said, it couldn't be.
It's nighttime in New York City. Heroin addicts are looking for their next fix. But they may never realize it could be their last, because that bag of heroin could be laced with a deadly dose of fentanyl.
That's the danger of the illicit drug market. You don't know what you're getting.
James Hunt is the special agent in charge of the Drug Enforcement Administration's New York division. He says most of the illegal fentanyl comes from Mexico's powerful Sinaloa cartel. It's allegedly run by the infamous El Chapo.
The Mexican cartels supplies 80% of the heroin in the United States, and they supply the majority of the fentanyl also. As much money as there can be made in heroin, 10 times more can be made by distributing fentanyl.
So why are the cartels cutting heroin with fentanyl?
They can mix the heroin with fentanyl, make it stronger. Addicts chase the addiction. They're always looking for a better high, so they're gonna make it as strong as possible, so you say, that's the best, and go back for more.
El Chapo is in a maximum security jail in Manhattan. He's awaiting trial on smuggling charges here in the U.S. But even with the reputed drug lord locked up, Hunt says his cartel is still operating full force.
How do they get the drugs into the country?
Majority of drugs are coming across in tractor trailers, literally thousands of tractor trailers that cross the border from the U.S. to Mexico. So if traffickers want to secrete drugs in containers of legitimate goods, they can do it. I mean, to search every truck would be impossible. It'd stop all commerce. You know, they have an advantage.
Fentanyl sounds bad. It is bad. But it was invented for all the right reasons. It's a potent synthetic opioid. It was designed to help cancer patients deal with unbearable pain.
I could not go a day, a minute, an hour without that fentanyl patch being on my body.
At first glance, Joanne Peach doesn't seem like the kind of person who would be hooked on fentanyl.
No, I wasn't a soccer mom, but I was a lacrosse mom and a football mom and a volleyball mom.
Joanne says she started taking prescription fentanyl to battle severe pain from pancreatitis.
It was incredible pain. It was malabsorption. I couldn't digest my food. The fentanyl patch delivered a steady stream of medication into my bloodstream. So I never felt high, I never felt low.
But Joanne says that steady stream of relief came with a price: addiction.
My body built up a tolerance to the medication. So as time went on, I was being prescribed larger doses by the pharmacy.
It was all you could think about.
Yes, but I never thought of it as the next fix. I thought about it in terms that I needed this medication to stay well.
After 10 years of daily use, Joanne says she realized fentanyl had its hooks in her. She had to do something.
I somehow made the connection that this patch was slowing my life down. So I went in to see my physician and I asked him, could we lower the dosage? We lowered it and tapered down until I was eventually off the medication completely.
Tragically, many teens are easy prey for the deadly seductress. They end up needing professional help.
It's very difficult for parents to get them in, especially once Once they hit 18, they pound their chest and they tell you what you can or can't do.
John Venza is a well-respected drug counselor on Long Island. And the ironic thing, his own son Garrett was hooked on heroin and fentanyl.
Was there a time when he was doing drugs and you had no idea he was doing them?
Definitely, definitely.
Have you ever thought to yourself, how could someone like you miss the warning signs?
Absolutely.
Have you ever thought that?
Absolutely, and I think, and I've gone over it 1,000 times in my head. You always replay you could have done differently, and then you surrender to the fact that you always did the best you could.
John, the vice president of the Outreach House, is a good father who raised his son right.
It was one of my favorites. This is classic him. Him with the barbecue chicken.
Barbecues, fishing, and martial arts classes.
Connected though he was very big into martial arts. From the time he was about 4 or 5. He was very good at it.
Martial arts instilled discipline in Garrett until his first semester of college. John says everything unraveled when Garrett got a job at a fast food joint.
There was a manager, 35, married with kids. But that young enough but old enough guy that was impressionable to the 18-year-olds, and the guy also was a heroin addict. And thought it would be a great idea to see if those kids wanted to try it. And a couple of them did. Garrett began to sniff. He sniffed about a bag to a bag and a half a day at its height.
John says Garrett snorted heroin. Many teens snort instead of injecting it. Garrett had been using for a little over 4 months. Then, some of his friends ratted him out for his own good.
I mean, you've been working in the field now for what, 20, 30 years at this point?
Yeah.
And you find out your son is addicted to heroin.
So there was this momentary disbelief like it couldn't be. I said, these guys aren't making this up. I know these kids.
Was he a person that you didn't recognize?
No, because he hid it so well and because his history of use was so brief.
John says he and his wife helped Garrett get clean. They gave him medications that block the part of the brain that craves the heroin high. For 21 months, it worked. Garrett was sober, but then
he ran into somebody he knew from high school. He chose to get some heroin from this kid. He came to my wife and I crying, saying, I really messed up.
Next, Garrett relapses, and the family fears the worst.
If he doesn't get his arms around this, I said, you need to prepare for him to die.
How easy is it for a high schooler or even a middle schooler here on Long Island to get access to heroin?
Because of text messages, because of the internet, you don't even have to go into certain neighborhoods anymore. You could just order on your text, and drug dealers are marketers now. And just give me your address and I will deliver.